Welcome, Age of Vintage Society. Olivia de Havilland was the last great living female star of the movie's golden age in the 1930s and 40s. She went up against a broken Hollywood studio system and helped change the industry forever. What made Olivia de Havilland to sue her bosses at Warner Brothers? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. This golden age actress was a queen of Hollywood, and she had all the catty feuds, illicit scandals, iconic roles, and steamy romances to prove it. With a life like this, how could anyone possibly forget the name Olivia de Havilland? The word icon tends to get thrown around a lot in Tinseltown, but it's an apt term to describe Olivia de Havilland. While the old Hollywood legend's life was largely characterised by success and contentment, her journey was not without difficulties. Speaking candidly about her struggles as a young actress within the restrictive studio system in Hollywood of the 1930s and 40s, the old Hollywood icon revealed that one of the biggest obstacles she faced was sexism. Sexism was a fact of life I simply had to accept. Men felt threatened and mistrustful of women who had good ideas, and one had to employ immense tact when dealing with directors and producers. This sexism also trickled down into her studio paychecks. As to remuneration for one's work, women were resigned to receiving less financial compensation than a man for their work, de Havilland declared. By the time she left Los Angeles and moved to Paris in the 1950s, de Havilland recalled that Hollywood for her had become a dismal, tragic place. Olivia de Havilland might have risen to glamour and glory, but her childhood was incredibly tragic. She was born in Tokyo, Japan on July 1st, 1916 to British parents. Her sister Joan arrived the following year. De Havilland's father abandoned the family when Olivia was still a little girl, taking up with his housekeeper instead. In this way the future star got a taste of heartbreak from a young age. But more was coming. Olivia's mother Lillian was incredibly strict with both Olivia and her sister Joan. Though men loved the beautiful girls, Lillian made them ask for permission to leave the house and demanded that she vet any paramours. De Havilland always knew she wanted to be a star, but she had to go to insane lengths to make it. Her stepfather thought acting was disgraceful, and when Olivia got the lead part in a school production, he nastily declared that if she took the role, he'd kick her out of the house. Well, at age 17, the hard-nosed Olivia left home to pursue her destiny. The sisters had a lifelong feud that allegedly began over competition for their mother's affections. Joan later changed her last name from de Havilland to Fontaine, which she took from her stepfather, to distance herself from her sister. The five-time Oscar nominee lost out on an Academy Award to her sister in 1941. Both had been up for Best Actress, which Fontaine ultimately took home for her role in Suspicion. De Havilland, who received a nod that year for her role in Hold Back the Dawn, was less than impressed at losing to her estranged sibling. As de Havilland once told a reporter, "My sister was born a lion, and I was born a tiger, and in the laws of the jungle, they were never friends." Havilland was both a classic Hollywood beauty and an honoured screen actress whose very name and bearing suggested membership in a kind of aristocracy of moviedom. Though she was typecast early in her career as the demure ingenue, she went on to earn meteor roles that led to 5 Academy Award nominations. Those roles came to her in no small part because of the resolve she showed when she stood up to the studios and won a battle that helped push Hollywood into the modern era, surprising the movie moguls, who may not have expected such steel in an actress so softly attractive and, at 5'3", so unintimidatingly petite. She had shown similar grit a decade earlier in her breakthrough role when she held her own against her formidable co-stars, Clark Gable, Vivien Leigh and Leslie Howard, in Gone with the Wind. De Havilland was under contract to Warner Brothers when the film's original director, George Cukor, working for the producer David O. Selznick, invited her to audition for the role of Melanie, After getting the part, she had to plead with her studio boss Jack Warner to lend her to the production, which would be distributed by MGM. One of Olivia de Havilland's first starring roles was also her most scandalous. Accomplished and alluring, Olivia de Havilland dated her share of Hollywood's most dashing power players at the height of her career. She was involved in the entertainment industry since the early 30s. Her big break came in 1933 when she portrayed Hermia in A Midsummer Night's Dream, a theatre production held at the Hollywood Bowl. From that point on, her career skyrocketed. She landed a 7-year contract with Warner Brothers and started working with Hollywood star Errol Flynn. She and Flynn were a huge on-screen pairing in their heydays, but many insisted their relationship was strictly professional. Nothing could be further from the truth. Flynn was one of the original bad boys of Hollywood, and the minute he turned his gaze on the still teenaged Olivia, she fell in love. "So naughty and so charming," she said of him. De Havilland made many films with Errol Flynn, including Captain Blood and The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex, which was probably one of the reasons why they fell in love with each other. However, their love was never consummated, they claimed, mainly because Flynn was married to Lily Demeter, an actress 5 years older than him. One thing is undeniable, though: their on-screen chemistry was splendid. De Havilland hated that she loved Flynn, and for good reason. Not only was he a Hollywood degenerate, he was also married. Always cool-headed and stubborn, she kept her feelings a secret from everyone, including Flynn himself. After decades of speculation, de Havilland finally admitted, at the age of 92, that she and Flynn had shared an emotional love affair. She confessed that they were very attracted to each other, and that the fact that they were in love was evident in the projects they worked together. She added, "His circumstances at the time prevented the relationship going further. I have not talked about it a great deal, but the relationship was not consummated." She also famously dated business tycoon Howard Hughes, director John Huston, and actor Jimmy Stewart. Eventually she met and dated Howard Hughes, a billionaire aviator, businessman and filmmaker, best known for flying around the world in 91 hours. According to the actress, Hughes was an honest and fair man, but also quite shy. She never stopped admiring and liking him, and even pointed out that he was a real hero. Another Hollywood actor who was romantically involved with Olivia de Havilland was Mr. Smith Goes to Washington star James Stewart. They dated for several months in what de Havilland described as a high school pre-war romance. Their relationship made headlines as everybody thought that they would elope. However, they parted ways just before Stewart enlisted in the army in 1941. 5 years later, when Stewart returned to the entertainment industry, he landed the part of George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life. De Havilland was offered the part of Mary Bailey, Stewart's on-screen wife, but she didn't accept it. According to the late actress, it would make her feel uncomfortable. Donna Reed ultimately took the role. After those high-profile relationships, de Havilland ended up marrying Marcus Goodrich in 1946. Her husband was a novelist and screenwriter, best known for the 1941 novel Delilah. Together they had a son, Benjamin. The former couple got divorced in 1953. Speaking of Benjamin, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma when he was only 19 years old and passed away from a heart attack in 1991. Also in 1953 she met French magazine editor Pierre Galland. 2 years later they tied the knot in Cannes, France. Their daughter Giselle was born in July 1956. Galland and de Havilland got divorced in 1979, but fortunately for their family they remained friends until 1998, when he passed away. To be sure, de Havilland was plenty glamorous. She won 2 Academy Awards for Best Actress. She had passionate public romances with James Stewart, Howard Hughes and John Huston, and survived a serio-comic courtship by a young John F. Kennedy. She maintained the most epic sororal feud in Hollywood history with her sister Joan Fontaine, yet her fearless feminist stance in a Los Angeles County courtroom in the middle of World War II is her enduring legacy. Her most lasting impact on Hollywood's history is lodged not on celluloid, but in the less glamorous pages of California's law books. the result of her risky 1943 decision to sue her bosses at Warner Brothers. That move destroyed the indentured servitude that was the studio system, and helped pave the way for the modern age of movie stars as independent mini-moguls, with control of their own artistic and financial fortunes. When de Havilland signed her first standard 7-year contract with Warner Brothers in 1936, she was still a minor, and it had to be approved by the courts. As she blossomed from a promising young player into a star in a string of swashbuckling costume dramas, de Havilland grew pickier about the parts she would accept. Each time she turned one down, the studio's imperious production chief, Jack L. Warner, whom she dubbed Jack the Warden, would suspend her without pay and tack the suspension time onto her existing contract. Warner had exacted similar penance from such talented but quarrelsome stars as Bette Davis and James Cagney, who turned down assembly line roles that they felt were beneath them. But it was de Havilland who finally decided to do something about it. I realised it was never at Warner I was going to have the work that I so much wanted to have, she would recall in a video interview with the American Academy of Achievement late in life. I thought, I have to refuse, I must do it, and I did, and of course I was put on suspension. By 1943, when her 7-year contract should have been up, she had accumulated an additional 6 months of suspension time. On the advice of Martin Gang, a prominent Hollywood lawyer, who would later defend victims of the Hollywood blacklist, as well as those who named communists and fellow travellers, de Havilland filed suit under an obscure state anti-peonage law, which barred any employer from enforcing a personal services contract for more than 7 years. Everyone in Hollywood knew that I would lose, but I knew that I would win. I had read the law. I knew what the studios were doing was wrong. De Havilland won her legal battle, leading to the establishment of the 7-year rule, the maximum length a talent contract can extend. However, de Havilland's courtroom victory did not come without exacting a price. As the lawsuit wound its way through the legal system, she found herself in an unusual position, still under exclusive contract to Warner Brothers, but not being offered any roles. As a result, de Havilland was effectively blacklisted during this period. Eager to remain productive, she decided to make the most of her spare time by visiting military hospitals in far-flung locales, ranging from Alaska to the South Pacific, and performing on radio. Unfortunately, on July 26, 2020, Olivia de Havilland passed away. De Havilland, one of the last surviving stars of Hollywood's golden age, died peacefully at her home in Paris. She was 104 years old. She is survived by her daughter Giselle. Her sister Joan Fontaine passed away in 2013 at 96. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Olivia de Havilland? As the actress explained to the outlet herself, she credited her extraordinary long life and health to the 3 L's: love, laughter, and light.